Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast pub chat this time. Yeah, so whatever. We're a little late this week, but
maybe we're precisely on time.
When aren't we? What are we gonna do? So today we're talking about deity work. Some more story time about Rasputin, that crazy guy, and a Magic in Media mini review. So stay tuned for those things, and let's get started with our user-generated question. Introductions and all that kind of stuff first, huh? I'm John Norgrove. This is Julie Norgrove. This is the Horn and Cauldron podcast. This is our pub chat, our short form, like every other week version. And we always start these off by answering a listener question. So if you are a listener and you have a question and you want to hear our research and opinions on it, then send us a message. The social media is down in the dibbly-doos below, and there's like a form on our webpage and stuff.
It's like we're professionals.
It's almost like we're pros, yeah. It's almost like we literally have done this at a professional level.
Yeah.
So, let's get started with that user question. Do I have to work with deities?
No, that's the simple answer.
Yeah.
So it's exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something that I see.
Do you make spaghetti for God? Well, then the answer is no, right? I mean, isn't that the same thing? Any task you do can be for a purpose, or for
exactly. I mean, you could make spaghetti for a god.
You can make God spaghetti, but you could also just want spaghetti.
Exactly. Totally separate.
Right? Like completely distinct and separate from, it's that thing where often I'm just going to go on a tangent here. Often I feel that we find ourselves in this place where we, because of the nature of normies, we are trying to always infuse magic into our lives, right? It's a bit of a shit show out there right now. And, if you're a millennial listening to this, and I'm going to go on a bold assumption here and say, yes, you probably are, then you know that it's especially messed up for us right now. So
not that it's more or less messed up for other groups, but
yeah,
there's a certain millennial existential dread that a lot of us seem to be going through, and I think that's what you're referring to.
How's that? How are those how's saving up for those house payments whilst also being able to afford to live working out for everybody, because it didn't really work out for us for a long time.
Yeah. Tell us what your ideal dystopian future scenario is so that you can retire.
Zombies. I'm hoping for zombies. I would like to retire with zombies. Yeah, that sounds gangster for me.
I'm okay with zombies, but I'm also okay with like something else, like the Stand, like a killer virus. I know
I'm pretty okay with Don't Look Up, where just a meteor crashes into the planet and like vaporizes our entire crust. But that's a separate, distinct, depressing, and existential dready sort of an answer.
Yeah, I would rather not have the meteor, because like
I would rather not.
I would really
Seven
like
Eves, though,
to,
some cave people survived that shit. Huh?
That's true.
And that was a great book.
Yeah. And some people underwater. Also that.
Yeah, right. I can swim
but then I wouldn't get to live out my like post-apocalyptic retirement dream
of
being the actual like Sphinx witch lady in the woods
I definitely
that you go to when you need a potion, a fortune told, or some sort of crazy spell work.
Yeah, I definitely want zombies. Although I would accept that one where all of the electronics stop working, but it's not just like everything gets ruined because of a solar flare.
Yeah.
But like it's whatever nanites in the sky or whatever.
Oh, no. I want like a nice and simple one. Really, like I imagine myself as like an NPC with that. And for me, one of the quizzes, because when you like have an NPC like that somewhere like out in sort of the middle, you usually have like a couple of different quests for them, and one of them is always a collecting quest.
Yeah.
So I think that I would have them collect for me a charcuterie board. So they would need to pick out
just a bit of wood,
they'd
flat
need to
and smooth. Polished up.
Yeah, well, no, I already have the board. They just need to bring me the stuff to go on it, right? So it'll be like, get this ham hock from farmer so-and-so.
We don't even need that.
And then it would be like, find this wheel of cheese.
We can make cheese. Get us an animal. We can turn it into salami. Like we got all the skills. We just need the supplies during the apocalypse, because trucking's out. But yeah, you know, the other, for me, it's like, are you, like, how you know you're a millennial? Is your boss saying that the only reason why you can't afford the nice things that they have is because you're eating a bunch of avocado toast, even though you're not? I mean, like, avocado toast is good, but avocados are fucking cheap. We live in California. What are you talking about? But, like, you hear that one often.
Yeah.
That's it. My favorite thing is that you hear that, like, in California. Like, it's because you guys spend so much.
We just picked up $1 a piece avocados.
Yeah, you're spending so much money on avocados. Yeah. It's like, dude, what? Avocados are cheap as shit.
The thing that I think I see the most on, like, social media for that stuff is, like, you just need to budget better. No. You can't budget your way out of being poor and underpaid.
You know what? I can budget $1,600 worth of bills on $1,200 worth of income. That's how budgeting works, right? Because rent is reasonable. Oh, no. It's definitely me not being able to do fucking basic math. Good job. Yeah. Anyway, millennial existential dread aside, no, you don't necessarily have to work with a deity.
Back to the actual question.
We went on a bit of a tangent, so we'll just kind of speed through the rest of this. No, you don't really need to work with a deity or whatever. Like, personal experience, like, I do deity work, but I also do not deity work.
I am the same way.
You know?
And for a long time, I did not do deity work, like, sort of exclusively. And I have had no problem. I had no problems then, and I have no problems now doing deity work. So it's kind of like, it's really like whatever it is you want. Like, so for people that are, like, especially new to the craft or want to, like, you know, sort of like get other ideas and like a scope of other, like, old pagan cultures, you're like, well, what deity should I commune with? Or what deity should I work with to bleh? The thing is you don't have to work with a deity. Yeah. And some people are like, oh, I've never had a deity contact me. Like, basically, what's wrong with me? The answer is nothing. There's nothing wrong with you.
So people just don't do that. Like, that's perfectly fine. And at the same time, like, I disagree with the idea that you have to have some sort of cultural association with that deity.
Yeah.
Like, if you vibe more with a deity that's outside of your, like, racial heritage, then that's fine. We're not racists. So...
Nor are we gatekeeping.
Yeah, nor are we going to gatekeep stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
So if there's a deity...
That's chaos, right? So, like, and to be careful on the internet. People are very, like, sensitive about this stuff, obviously, right? But, like, at the same time... Like, if you're vibing on some stuff and you want to practice and all this kind of stuff, obviously I'm not saying, like, don't be disrespectful, right?
Yeah.
To the culture associated with it and do your research and stuff. Yeah.
What who this deity is and what that means to them, and not just sort of like, taking on to that.
Also, take your research with a grain of salt. There's a bunch of, specifically as a person who practices the Norse mythology and not entirely pale-skinned, as it were, of the brownness. There's a lot of stuff out there when I look up and do research into Norse stuff that's just, like, hateful racist shit, because a bunch of hateful racists have decided to, like, misinterpret a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
And so they think, like, unless you're white, you can't worship Odin, which is horse shit, but...
Yeah. Now we also talk a lot about this in our Toxic Internet Witchcraft episode, which is episode 22. So if you have questions about gatekeeping and how to handle that, or what are good ways to do research to ensure that you are being respectful to a culture, definitely listen to that episode. It's a really good one. Trigger warning, there's a lot of stuff that we talk about in it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so with deities, like, you can work with whoever you want, or you can work with none of them. There's really nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of people feel like they have to work with deities. They have to figure out what kind of, witch they are. Are you a forest witch or a water witch or a fire witch?
Oh, yeah.
And you also have to figure out a deity. And that's because there's a lot of people who are posting on social media right now, not just TikTok, but, like, sort of all over the place, where they're like, I'm talking to insert god name here. Insert god name here came to me in my dreams last night, and you can see the same thing with, like, I must be a a water witch because blah, or
like
I must be a kitchen witch because I'm only good at cooking. Yes, sandwich.
Oh, that's so good.
That's not to say that you can't take one of those paths. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm a water witch, or I'm a fire witch. Like, these are the elements that I know the most about and that I feel like I have the most control in.
Yeah.
The thing is you don't have to put yourself in that box. If that box is where you want to be, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the same thing goes with deity work. So if you want to work with a deity, absolutely go ahead. But if you don't want to work with a deity, you don't have to. And just because they're not reaching out to you doesn't mean that that's not that there's something wrong with you, or that there's not like a way to sort of handle it. Because you got to remember, for every person posting on social media, oh, like I'm communing with such and such deity and they gave me a sign somehow, like there's at least 10 other people who are not having that experience.
Yeah.
Regardless of being pagan or not, that 1 in 10 thing is generally a pretty good rule to follow. So for every one person that's saying a thing online, there's 10 other people who are not.
Yeah. Well, and like when you're working with a deity, right? Like there's like generalized worship, what I would call like monotheistic megachurch style worship, right? And that's not a hate, like whatever, believe however you want. I'm not here to like judge people on the way that they believe. I'm going to judge people on the character of their like personage. Yeah. Right? Like if you're an ass, you're an ass. Don't be an ass. That shit seems fairly straightforward. Yeah, that moth just dodged your stuff, my guy.
Completely.
But like, you know, you can like worship in the like standard way, for a lack of better words. But then there's also like, if, you know, I mean, like you can sort of idolize a deity.
Yeah.
And just look up to him. You can try to like emulate a deity. Yeah. You can also just like, for me, like personal practice, like the deity work that I do is generally like a little bit of like ritual work kind of stuff during high holidays, you know, during the like 8 blots, sort of deity work. And then like it's the active conversation, I guess, is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the audience in the shadows thing. Like I just like talk to deities.
Yeah.
Right? Insofar as I talk to also like literally everything all the time. I yell at spiders at the house.
Yes.
I talk to the birds, both the ones we own and the ones we do not own. I am currently having a severe debate with the street post near our house, who chooses not to light up most of the time. Most of
the time when we need it.
Yeah, we're just like, oh, what are you taking the trash out? No light. What is it? Just nighttime? Some light sometimes. Like this guy, he's just, this street post.
The street post. It's got
such a judgy jerk.
Sassy.
He's very sassy. He wants more garbage. He wants more garbage sacrifices.
Or maybe less garbage.
Or maybe less garbage sacrifices.
Sure. We haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, he's weird. Whatever. That's fine. Right. So like, you know, find the thing that fits best for you. And we are going to do a podcast episode or something about this. Maybe we'll just do like a special episode or whatever. But like, if you don't jive with historical deities, but like, whatever, Spider-Man is like your jam and has had a positive effect in your life, then like, idolize and make offerings to the ideas of Spider-Man. Like there's nothing wrong with that, you know? And like the system is how you want it to be, because it's your system, it's your practice, it's your craft, right? And other than being like us, people who are trying to inform and give like add texture, you know, to the equation, like, you know, if somebody says like I worship Baba Legba and he only the colors black and red, nothing else. Like that's gangster. But like if you own a blue shirt and your work requires you to wear a blue shirt, like I don't know, whatever, you work at the post office or whatever, like that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's funny how you went for post office and I went for Best Buy. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I worked at Best Buy once, so you know, whatever. I got trauma. Nah, I sold digital cameras. That was fucking great, dude. I learned so much doing that job. Legit, that's why I'm as good as I am with all the stuff, all the camera stuff that I do is because of that place. Or knowledge-wise at least. But yeah, so again, it's very like whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, and sort of like conversely from the Spider-Man thing, which we've definitely talked about in a few episodes. I think most recently in our Technomancy episode, which is a few back. But also, if you are like, you know, if you want to stick to a particular pantheon, then that gives you a lot of options. Like it still gives you a ton of flexibility, but if you don't necessarily like the archetypes mythology in it, it can kind of cause like cognitive dissonance where you're like, I want to do something about worshiping this person or working with this spirit, this entity, but I don't like this story about them. Just remember, like these myths about the deities are, you know, they're old. And the thing is there's a lot of different myths with a lot of different origins. And there's a lot of different ways that things can be sort of interpreted over time. And, you know, we talked about that in the Aphrodite deep dive episode that we did, because she has sort of two different origin stories that are mostly but the same, but like slightly different. And, you know, then you also have to take into account the smear campaign on native religions that happened when the Christianization of Europe was going on. Drinking game for those of you playing. You know, where, you know, and we've talked about that in other episodes too, most particularly the deep dive on the Dagda. But so, you know, there's a lot that kind of goes into there too. So just because you may not like a particular story about a deity doesn't mean that you have to sort of cross them out of your practice, unless you feel like you want to. Obviously, if you want to do that, go ahead.
If you're just like, hey, all Greek gods, but like maybe
but that kind of
maybe fuck Hermes or whatever. I don't know why I'm putting Hermes on blast.
Usually people are talking about Zeus when they're
maybe
talking
fuck
about
Zeus,
this.
right? But at the same time, I mean, you can worship an aspect of a character.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you're real like lightning, but like no war and none of Zeus's sexy time problems, then you can just be like, I like lightning gods. I'm super into lightning. Like Zeus, but only the lightning throne part. Thor, but like only the lightning part. No redheads. You know, like or fucking whatever. Like that's
you
fine.
Kind
you know,
of treat that like take that idea and like treat it like the deities are correspondences, particularly if you don't believe in them or don't resonate with the idea of that sort of thing.
Yeah, if you don't resonate with the whole picture.
Yeah, using them like a correspondence, like you would use like basil for love magic.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that is a great way to incorporate deities into your practice, but without necessarily worshiping them. And it's something that I have read that a lot of SASS witches do. And SASS is an acronym for skeptical, agnostic, atheist, and science seeking.
You are reading that crazy.
SASS?
There you go.
That was what I was saying.
The pause is in a less insane place there.
Oh.
Also, they're sass witches.
Sass
call
witches.
them sass.
Yeah. So, and you can be a sass pagan too if you don't really resonate with the term witch. Really, the idea behind it is this is a term that's used for witches and for other pagans, where they're not particularly interested in the quote unquote woo aspect of things. You know, they're much more interested in the like take out the religious parts of it. Which is a really interesting way to look at it. And there's a lot of good ways to sort of understand how you do magic without religion as part of it. So it's a really interesting sort of rabbit hole to dive down into.
Yeah.
So if you do not work with deities, do not understand why people do, you may want to check out more resources from SASS witches. Yeah,
that's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the sass. So next up, incredibly longer than it needed to be rants out of the way. Story time. Let's talk about the Rasputin, shall we?
Yeah. So this is actually the part 2 of this one.
Yep.
So in the last pub chat, we talked about like why people would why people would think what are the like actual reasons that Rasputin was the way that he was. But we didn't actually talk about what the rumors were. So we're just going to kind of do this backwards, I suppose, and talk about the rumors fairly quickly. So there's a lot of rumors, and they kind of all are similar, which is interesting because we were just talking about deities and mythology and such. And Rasputin is definitely a modern person who has developed so many rumors about them, so many stories, that they're basically becoming their own mythology.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, it's that cult leader shit.
Well, and it's beyond that. But yes, it is very much that cult leader shit. But it's even beyond, like, even people who know that he has, like, you know, this cult thing, and, you know, that most of the rumors were not necessarily real. And I say not necessarily because I didn't live then, so I don't know.
Maybe he made them up.
Maybe they were all made up.
Maybe it was Maybelline.
Maybe he was, like, actually magical. We don't know.
Yeah.
And basically no one that was alive when he was alive is still around. So
yeah.
Unless you're a vampire.
What's up? We've talked about you.
We know you're out there.
Let's hang out. Okay.
So, yeah. So, we're going to go through some of the rumors about Rasputin so that you can kind of take the last pub chat episode and this one and sort of decide for yourself what you think about him and who he was and what he did, and sort of where the line between magician and charlatan is.
Yeah. The rumors of Rasputin. So that's what we're going to go through. First up, that this dude did freaky sex magic. He practiced the sex magic.
Yeah. So it was said that he had a voracious sexual appetite. And that he would go out whoring frequently and would talk about it at, like, you know, fancy political dinners, inviting like foreign dignitaries to go to the brothel with him. And that he spent a lot of time there. In fact, these rumors were so rampant that after he died, his penis was rumored to have been cut off and then preserved in a mason jar for decades. And then hundreds of years after his death, people have used various jars full of what is purported to be his penis in rituals and fertility rites. In fact, one jar that, I mean, when the autopsy on Rasputin happened, it was indicated that his junk was still there.
Yeah.
But again, this was a long time ago.
North of 100 years?
Yes.
Didn't he die around World War I?
Yes. So it's been about 100 years. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, maybe not hundreds of years. That's a bit.
800 years.
Yeah.
800
for
years.
decades.
I was just like, he's not that far ago.
That whole math thing was not working for my head.
That's okay. That's okay. Also, apparently, this guy was
blessed.
Yeah.
Or cursed, depending on how you look at that.
Yeah. Packing dolomite, right?
Yeah.
Straight
in
gangster.
Fact, one of the most popular instances of this is Rasputin's penis in a jar is actually a sea cucumber in a mason jar. And then there's also one that's rumored to be a cow's penis. There's a whole bunch of them. And one of these such jars recently sold for $2 million. I mean, I say recently, within like the last 15 years, sold for $2 million. And the person was like, I'm pretty sure it's real.
That's, I mean, listen, this guy, magical peen. What that sound like to me.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So next up was that he was rumored to have the ability to like mystically heal people. I understand that. I just went for the
you did go
Xavier.
Hand on head.
I just went for the like, but that's not what I mean at all. He just laid hands on people, right? He poured water. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe he did.
If you play video games and you get pouring water. Sometimes that's what you do.
Sometimes it's what you do.
You pour water, you lay hands. Those are like the modern terms I use for healing magic because the internet. But yeah.
So, there was this rumor that he was able to essentially use his faith to heal. So faith healers is a pretty common thing in certain religions, and it is rumored that he was able to do this. But the thing is there's not really a lot of him healing anyone other than the Tsar's son, Alexei. Yeah. And we talked about this in the last pub chat at length, but Alexei had a blood disorder that causes blood not to clot. So the thing about it that is interesting is that he was really the only one who was able to heal Alexei. And we don't really know why. Yeah. There are certain people that are wondering, but this is one of the more mysterious ones because he would just like basically talk to this kid and then this kid would be healed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he had a blood platelet disorder. It wasn't like he was talking him down from like a panic attack or anything.
Well,
so
but
that may have been part of it. The thing is
maybe
we
that
don't know.
Was part of it, right? I mean, like if you think about it from the point of view of like maybe he was like maybe the kid got cut and was bleeding and having a panic attack and stuff, and like he was the only one who was able to calm him. I've also seen like the rumor that he was like he was healing Alexei by just stopping poisoning him.
Yes, I've also heard that too.
Like every time people were just like, charlatan, he was just like, yeah, let me go talk to this kid. Look how fine he is now. And they're just like, oh! And really he was just like, the kid was just like, is it time for the cookie? And he was just like, no cookie today. You're healed. You know, or whatever. So, like, again, all of everything about Rasputin, in my opinion, is like polar. Right? It's just like Rasputin, voracious dong, / like, maybe not. Maybe the guy was just like a bit of a hoe. Like, no, hey, but like maybe this guy was just a bit of a hoe. Right? So, like, it's that thing where it's like maybe he healed this kid, magic god powers. Also, maybe he just stopped poisoning him. You know, less magic, less god powers. Really just like not being a dick for a little bit.
Yeah.
So, right? So then there's also, speaking of magical god powers, the like generalized idea that this dude had superpowers to use the like modern vernacular. He could do like supernatural shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of rumors about various supernatural powers, but really no sources for any of this stuff. So I saw rumors anywhere going between like he could basically like bring his thoughts into life. Anything he like said would happen, and not just like I prophesize, but like anything he wanted to happen, if he spoke it into being, then it would happen. It also, you know, it sort of ties into a lot of other things too, and we're going to talk about some of them in a minute. But really, he was just like a cult leader, basically. He was mysterious, he was enigmatic, but he was also really knowledgeable about generalized spiritual as well as occult matters. Yeah. He lived during a time where occult practices were booming,
so
you know, Golden Dawn and the Hermetic Order, and people really getting into Kabbalah. There's a ton of stuff that was happening in the time that he lived. In addition to that, there were a lot of people high up in the courts who, you know, not like law courts, like kings and queens courts, royal courts. So there was a lot of people in the royal courts who were very interested in all the spiritualism stuff. It kind of happened right around the same time that seances got big. Yeah. And we talked about that in one of our first pub chats. So, you know, there's a lot of, you know, it was already on people's minds. He's like a weird looking dude, but like you kind of can't take your eyes off him. Like if you look at old pictures of Rasputin, because there are pictures of him, especially pictures of him in a group of other people.
He's super creepy looking.
You can't not look at him.
Yeah, he's super creepy. He's super creepy.
Very creepy looking.
Yeah, so he was just like a real intense cat.
Yeah.
You know? And so like that sort of started this, like, because he was an intense cat and because he had like, you know, he like ran a cult, people were just like, oh, this guy's got some magic and such like that. Like, an example of that is that a lot of people believe that he could see the future.
Yes.
Which, you know, that's a thing that like, that's one of them supernatural powers. Like, could he see the future?
Yes. I mean, maybe he did. But also, maybe he was very good at just sort of like using common sense to assume what's going to happen.
He was like, don't touch that, it's gonna burn you. And then they're like, I burned myself. This guy's a wizard. And he's like, yeah, I mean, it was in the fire, but
also, maybe...
You're right, I am a wizard, so... Yeah,
but also, on the other hand, maybe he said, you're going to, tomorrow night, burn your hand on the oven.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, and you know, when it comes to that sort of prophecy stuff, and we haven't talked a whole lot about this in our episodes, but like, you know, precognition and seeing the future, having visions, prophecies and all that sort of thing, there's sort of like a really interesting way that you can look at it between like, I saw this, it's going to happen, but is it because that you saw it that it's going to happen? You know, sort of the idea behind the Greek myths, like your son will kill you, and then they do everything to try and have their son, you know, they like basically
treat their son like an asshole, right? And then their son grows up being like, this guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Given the opportunity, I'm gonna stab him. And then when he stabs him, he's just like, that's what the prophecy said. And the son's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you've been like a dick for 20 years. So, you know,
it's actually much more likely that they give the baby away or abandon the baby, and then the baby makes its way to court later, and then somehow either mistakenly or purposely kills the king, turning out to be his father. Anyway, so like, there was a lot of rumors that he could see the future. So 2 weeks after Rasputin's death, crowds of citizens invaded the castle, and the Tsar was forced to abdicate. He was probably trying to advocate for himself.
Yeah, advocate for not dying.
That did not work out for him or his family. No. Yeah, so in its own way, Rasputin was right. So after Rasputin died, the Tsar basically no longer ruled, because 2 weeks is basically no time at all. And then right after, the Tsar and his family being pulled from power, started the revolution. And then brother would theoretically fight against brother in a countryman sort of sense.
Sure.
Yeah,
right. Or because of all the hoeing, he was at the brothels and was hearing people like, downstairs at the bar being like, we gotta eat the Tsar's kidneys, right? Like, fuck that guy, he's the worst. And then Rasputin was just like, we should warn this dude, but like, I'm gonna make a mystical sound, so,
Yeah.
Stay gangster.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those sort of things. You know?
Totally.
But so we also had the idea that he was able to physically manipulate people psychically. He was able to physically just like put your arm over here. It's over here now.
I mean, I feel like the
success magic.
I feel like the physically manipulate goes in that sex magic.
It's
bucket.
true, right?
And
he was
maybe
just like, "What's up,
bucket,
guys?" And they're just like, "Yeah." All right.
You're like, I guess.
But no, psychically manipulate people. Yeah.
So the reason for that is because it was rumored that he ruled the kingdom and had an affair with the Tsarina, the Tsar's wife. And there's really no like proof for any of that. But, if he wanted something, he'd get the thing that he wanted.
Yeah.
And he may have, certainly boasted about being able to, boss the Tsar or the Tsarina around. There's even a few rumors that some of the children were his. It sounds to me like, just sort of rumors running rampant. Not that he couldn't, but, cult leaders have this tendency to be able to get people to do the things that they want them to do.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
believe the things that they say.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you're controlling someone's mind, even though you kind of are in its own way. Not really in like the woo aspect of it, though.
Totally, yeah. And then I would argue most famous superpower of supernatural power of Rasputin is that he was rumored to be able to survive death itself, and was rumored to be like immortal, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that immortality was because of some sort of like dark art shit, or that immortality was because he was like such a powerful wizard.
Yeah. Or
was by the grace of God, if you believe that he was like graced with God's gifts and such like that. But I mean, long story short, they didn't fuck around when they tried to kill this guy.
Well,
because of it.
They kind of did, but also not. So this is one of those areas where even though it's so recent, we don't really know because there are very limited accounts from that night. And of course, the people who killed him...
Who's writing down exacting records of committing murder?
Well, I mean, but also the people who killed him are going to want to look cool when they're telling the story, right? Yeah. And the people who killed him were not experienced, like, assassins or anything like that. They were mostly, like,
wasn't
nobles.
A team of ninjas.
It was not a team of ninjas. It
wasn't an 80s action movie team of ninjas.
I mean, maybe a comedic 80s action movie, but still definitely not the team of ninjas.
Maybe those ninjas were teenagers and also turtles.
Yeah. Now... Not only did Rasputin get stabbed in the stomach like a while before his death, and he survived it, even though it was a pretty big stab wound. He just basically got lucky and then healed. But the night that he was killed, he was poisoned with supposedly enough cyanide to be able to kill like a horse immediately. And then he was shot several times, and then his body was thrown in the river. So the rumor is that he was poisoned and either just totally hulked out of that poison or threw it up and then got angry. And then he was shot at several times, and he kept coming back. And then because they weren't able to kill him these other two ways, they threw his body in the river and attempted to drown him. And then there's even additional rumors that say that after his body was pulled out of the river, and we're talking icy Russian rivers. Yeah. There's even this rumor that he got up after being pulled out of the river and then was finally shot in the head one time. And that was it. Although there are some rumors that say that basically that wasn't his body they pulled out of the river, even though it looks like his body. And he just like survived, and he's out and about with Tupac and Biggie. Yeah. And like Jimmy Hoffa.
Doing Illuminati shit.
Just doing Illuminati
whatever
stuff.
People... whatever the conspiracy, whatever the History Channel tells us.
Hanging out with Bigfoot.
Yeah, doing Bigfoot shenanigans.
Hitching rides on UFOs or something.
But so, that's just like a very short list of the, like, insano rumors.
Yeah.
That surround the, like, character of Rasputin.
Yeah.
Right? And he really is, at this point in time, like, not just, like, some dead asshole, but, like, a character.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially because he's in a lot of things. Like, he's in a lot of pop culture stuff. Yeah. He's sort of like a figure that people know, or maybe if they don't know, they kind of have an idea as to who he is. I mean, there's even like songs about him. Like, some of them were written in the 70s. There's also rumors that if you sing the Rasputin song, the one written in the 70s, it's like very disco-y.
Yeah.
If you sing that song in Russia, if you sing that song on the anniversary of his death, he will basically rise from his grave and claim your life. So...
okay, man. I mean... That's a real good song. I don't know about that.
So even after death, he's becoming this like larger than life figure that puts him on par with like Candyman.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, really any of those other like.
Who's the one that you Bloody Mary, the one that you summon in the mirror, that sort of thing. Totally. So he really has become this like very larger than life kind of thing, and it's an interesting thought experiment to kind of go through these ideas about who he was and the things he did and what people said about him, and then try to decide for yourself whether you think that he was magical or whether he was just like very good at what he was doing. Not that he's a good person, mind you, because he very clearly was not a good person. Right?
All right, so next up we've got Magic in Media. We recently just watched the latest Marvel movie, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which was a quick spoiler-free review. Fucking awesome. Go watch it in the theaters. Seriously, it's a theater experience.
It was, highly recommend watching it in the theater. Yeah. And we are people that love watching stuff streaming, because then we can pause it and, cuddle with our dogs and stuff.
Yeah, and watch it like 3 or 4 times in a row.
Or over the course of 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, depending on
how ADD we are.
Yeah, but no, this was a really good movie. And obviously, like Doctor Strange, he's the Sorcerer Supreme, and you've got the magic and all that kind of stuff in it. This was very, like literally at one point in time in this movie, he's, like, getting overcome with stuff, right? And they're just like, you're Doctor Strange. Like, you should be able to handle this. And he's just like, you're right, I should. And then, like, force of will, like, whatever, is able to survive and such. So, like, it was a really good movie, and it had, like, a very interesting sort of, like, I really love the blend of culture in the magic that is Doctor Strange's magic. And I really like, I mean, Doctor Strange feels very, like, the magic feels very thought out to me. Yeah. You know? And it's also, like, if you've read any of the, like, OG Doctor Strange comics, it was very, like, acid trip, like, you know, 60s, 70s, like, kind of nonsense, which I'm super into. That, like, sort of acid mancer stuff. I'm super, super into that. So, like, that's really cool.
Yeah. We get introduced to a few other newer styles of magic as well. I don't really want to give anything away.
Yeah, we're not trying to spoil
just
this.
because, like, you may not have seen it yet, and we want to try to avoid those spoilers where we can. But we do get some, like, new magic types that we were really excited about. Watching in the theater. It had a huge impact on us. And also, you know, fair warning here, it does have kind of like a horror-esque vibe to it, and that's because it's directed by Sam Raimi, and there are some very sort of dark things that we're wrestling with throughout this whole movie. So there are, like, a couple of jump scares, and there's some, like, horror movie adjacent stuff.
It's not a horror
actually
movie.
A horror movie.
It's just that, like, in order to do the job right, they brought horror elements in. Yeah. Right? And there's a lot of little stuff where we're like, as like somebody who studies like magical practice and, like, works, you're gonna be like, oh, I recognize that from something, or I recognize that word, or, like, I know what they're doing here, or whatever. And again, I feel like this movie really falls into that category of, like, blurring the line between, like, just pure entertainment and, like, almost inspiration. Like you can find inspiration for the way that you practice, like, inspiration for your craft.
Absolutely.
You know?
And
which is really awesome. And we did, and, you know, like, I've always been a big fan of Doctor Strange, but, like, even like OG comic style. But, like, this added a bunch of... This was a fantastic movie. Highly recommend. And it's kind of got, like, a little bit of everything. It's got a little bit of magic for, like, every kind of practitioner, is the way that I would say it. But, so, like, I know this is sort of a shorter Magic and Media, but we don't want to spoil it. Stay tuned for, like, a full-length, like, review. And we'll do, like, full review. On the channel, but we just haven't had a chance to get to that yet. We're getting ready for Fanime. And speaking of Fanime, as we move on, Fanime's Memorial Day weekend this month. So if you are in San Jose and attending Fanime, check out our podcast. We're doing a Horde and Cauldron podcast. We're
going to be there doing a live panel.
Yeah. And recording an episode. We're doing Magic in Anime. Where we're watching 5 different anime and talking about the magic in those anime. So, like, check us out there. And if you're not able to attend Fanime, which is completely reasonable, it's that episode will be coming out the week after that.
Yeah.
So,
and if you are attending Fanime, or if you want to kind of get ready for that, you can watch any of these anime and sort of have an idea as to what it is that we're talking about. We're watching Fire.
To quote a great internet bartender, sometimes we're late, just like your mom. So that happens. I don't know.
Internet celebrity bartender.
Disgraced internet celebrity bartender. He's got a lot of titles. That's fine.
So do we.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
But we also would like to thank our patrons. Alan, Miranda, Alexa, Helena, Jeff, and Adrian, you guys are awesome.
Yep.
And by helping us out, you are making this increasingly awesome, which is what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
So thank you, and I don't know, whatever, stay frosty or something. I couldn't think of the compliment thing that I was going to say in my head, and whatever, I'm exhausted. My brain is like turning off. I've been crafting for 2 solid days. My head is melted. Yeah, that's how that's going right now. Anywho, I've been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been The Horn
and Cauldron
Podcast Pub Chat. We will catch you guys next time. If you're listening to us on your podcast network of choice, leave us a review. That's how we know you listened. Otherwise, literally no clue at all. I don't know how those work. Podcasts are confusing, even though we host one. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do the things that everybody else says to do, or whatever. And we will catch you guys next time. Stay magical, folks.
Yeah, and don't forget, breathe in self-confidence and breathe out self-doubt.